Hello, my name's Mike Ward. I'm the head of content at Script, Pinksheet and Invivo. We're here in Copenhagen at the Bio Europe 2018 meeting, and it's where the pharmaceutical, biotech and investors all get together. I'm joined by deBethizy, and Don, you're a serial entrepreneur. You've been the whole spectrum of businesses, setting them up, running them, IPOs, selling the businesses on, etc. You're on a number of boards. What I thought would be really cool to ask you is, how is this the best time we've had for biotech in years?
Mike, I'm delighted to be able to talk to you today because it is a fantastic time to be in biotech. And I was at a JP Morgan meeting a while back, and one of the most cynical people about our industry was talking, and he said, "This is a mature industry. We have windows. We don't really have windows anymore, for financing. Yeah. Companies can get public. We are a mature industry, and we have lots more to discover. There's so many unmet medical needs. This whole movement into rare diseases and disorders has really opened up and breathed a lot of fresh air into the venture funds. Venture funds have raised a tremendous amount of money, which then creates a lot of momentum.
Yeah, but I mean, if we look at the landscape, I mean, this industry still speaks with an American accent. They still suck in most of the funds. How is Europe placed? Because I can tell by your accent you're not from around these parts, but you actually live here. So
yeah, I live here in Copenhagen. My wife's Danish. She got me to move here, and so I have done an American biotech company, and I've done now a Danish biotech company, and I realized that there was great value to have the American attitude, because the Europeans and the Scandinavians are taught to be reserved and to not brag and not boast. And I've spent a lot of my time trying to get people to understand that getting people to invest in your passion has nothing to do with boasting. It has everything to do with getting them to invest in you, and because you're going to help them. And that I started to try to become wiser here, like a European board member, where I would be quieter, more reflective, but that's not me. So I'm quite American, and I'm just being me, and they don't know that I'm even an enthusiastic American. They just think I'm American. Okay.
So, but looking at for example, the share of the money that's going. So we're, looking at the amount of money that's going into venture, in the private space, where at least Europe seems to be able to compete. It's still something like 75-25. Right. Do you see that changing, or what should European biotech do?
Well, there are some very good European and Scandinavian venture firms. When I first got here 10 years, I moved here 6 years ago, but when I got here and met them, I realized I can't tell the difference between Forbion and Novo Ventures and all these Sunstone. They all know how to do venture capital. No. The problem here is that they get the cream of the crop, and below that, there's a limited number of experienced funds. And they're risk averse. When I was coming with my Target, my US biotech company, trying to raise money in Europe, I always said, it's like pulling teeth. So they want more risk out, but it's biotech. And in fact, you have to completely change the model. So I have been talking a lot to people about how they've got to put the big idea out there, and they have to do a blended model where they're using European money and American money. And with Rigantech, they said, well, how can we do that? I said, you just call them up. Yeah. So it helps if you know the investors. It helps if you have an American IR/PR firm. But they know that there's good technology, good people in Europe, and they're just undercapitalized.
Yeah. So Rigantech, that was the company that got acquired by
Merck.
Yeah.
And I was chairman of that. Was my first board and chairman role, actually, first chairman role. But that was a really good example where we had we had Sunstone and Forbion and Wellington, and so it was a good, and among others. But it was an early stage company, and I had forgotten what it's like to have me be the only independent. and the CEO hadn't done that early of a stage, and so we had some challenges in the beginning, but we got them to understand we should open a Boston office. So we opened a Boston office. The German accelerator paid for it, and we put our U.S. chairman of our SAB in that little office, but that changed our profile. It made us more appealing in a very subtle way to the American investors. And we didn't need to get the American investors ultimately because Merck bought us, but we were decked up in a Series B just ahead of that and ready to, and the other part is the European VCs tend not to do their Series A's large enough. You know, the Series A's are $35 to $50 million now in the US, and Rigentex was 15 million euros to begin with, and we got that raise. So getting more money, being able to get into the clinic, get the value development done, and adding the staff that, you know, getting the executives in there that the investors can recognize as being value added.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's sort of, you know, the data that we've done, the mean Series A financing for a European company is around about $18 million, whereas in the States these days it's about $30 million, and that's the mean.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're small. And of course, you know, and in the sort of the early venture stuff, that's where at least there's a little bit of kind of, you know, parity between Europe and the US. But when we get to the public markets, it's a whole different ballgame. So
I think Argenx is a good example of that.
Yeah, because
it was on the Euronext.
Yeah.
It went public on the Euronext, and that's, you know, I was asked by Forbion to join that board, so because to help Tim with the public company governance. And as soon as I got there, I realized that he wanted to go public in the US. I thought he should go public in the US, so we did that advocacy, and that's where the companies had the, you know, we went public last year in 2017 on the NASDAQ. And then we hit phase two different compounds. It's almost a $3 billion company now. And it's got the Baker brothers, it's got all those funds that are large funds, and they put money to work for 5 years. You know, they'll be in your company for 5 years.
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of European companies actually, if they're not doing their first offering in the States, they certainly do a secondary initial public offering.
And I don't want to, you know, one of the things that I have slowed down enough here to do is to learn the First North NASDAQ in Stockholm, and the earlier smaller public offerings there. I'm chairman of Saniona, which that's how they grew that company. They grew it entirely in that retail-based. Quite unique in Sweden. You know, they have these investment committees, and I mean the investment groups and the retail people all meet and talk. It's not like institutional money that really understands our business. So you can't, you have to move on beyond that, and that's why Klaus Brestrup asked me to be chairman, and this company is got a lot of potential. Now, taking you know, Sweden and Denmark-oriented people and getting them exposed more in the U.S. it takes time.
Okay, so with all your experience, what advice would you give to sort of, you know, entrepreneurial European CEOs? You know, what should they be, you know, thinking about most?
The very first thing they need to realize, they're a global company from birth. It's not a parochial company. And that then opens up the US market to you mentally. And that you really have to get a good IR, PR firm or bank or somebody that knows the investors to help you and to help organize the meetings. They can organize a roadshow in Boston and New York in a heartbeat. And if you have interesting, and then the other part is they have to put a big idea out there. That it seems like it could fail, because it's a big idea, but you cannot get the attention of the US investors because they're all about innovation. Pharma's all about innovation. The investors have realized they can make money for their limited partners by investing in innovation. So even if it's kind of like a little bit crazy in the sense that it's so innovative, put it out there and get some people around you that have experience in how you get there and articulate that. and you can't say it enough. Get it down into some sound bites, make it very reliable on a strong foundation, so you're not abandoning the good European values of really careful work. You're just, good data doesn't sell itself. Yeah. Good company and ideas don't.
You need to buy a good megaphone. Yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Look, Don, it's a pleasure talking to you.
Really
Thanks
nice
for stopping by. Yeah,
Thank
great.
You.
Thank you.